Welcome back to A Bit of Curiosity. I'm your host, Jeremy Howlett, and I'm excited to be joined by we can call you a longtime friend at this point, Kyle Simmons.
So we've crossed that threshold.
We have crossed that threshold. So I've known Kyle for almost 15 years since he was back at Runner's World and I was at Ultra. Kyle's now married with a kid of his own and living the fantastic life down in Miami as he was just promoted to vice president, right? Or
Caught that.
yeah.
No, it's
No,
executive director of
executive director.
marketing.
Close enough, right? Like close enough.
It's another cool title.
But at the JW Turnberry down there in Miami, and so if you're ever in the area, go stay with them and hang out and play the 18 holes there. But I'm excited. I'm excited to have you on. So as we were talking before, I held off on letting you tell this story, but let's go ahead and get started. So tell us about the painting in the background.
Yeah, so that painting, my grandmother lived in the same house for more than 60 years and was the second homeowner ever in that house, which is now about 130 years old. So she moved into this home in the outskirts of New Jersey, about 20 miles west of New York. She moved into that home in her mid 20s from the prior owner, who was a very wealthy woman, and it was a large step up in hers and my grandfather's life. They had some good opportunities, and they purchased this home, and they lived in there their entire lives. Literally, my grandfather and grandmother died in this home, at 86 and I think 78 years old, respectively. But what had happened is in the last 2 years of my grandmother's life, they were in the process of cleaning out her attic. She had too much stuff up there and wanted to just cleanse things and was giving stuff away to people. And somebody found this painting and asked her about it. And she said, "I've never seen that painting in my life." So her memory is a steel trap, by the way. She had a brilliant mind and could tell you very intricate stories about even when she was a child, and quickly came to the realization that this was a painting that had been sitting in that attic for more than 60 years that she had lived in that house. Clearly, from the prior owners, she had never seen it. So I asked if I could have it because it's a sailboat setting, it's a coastal setting. We're in Miami, it's perfect. And I did some Googling on the artist who I had never heard of, and it turns out it's essentially somebody who never broke it large. They'd only ever done 3 art shows in New York City, where their only art shows back in the early 1920s. So it's
Wow.
about a 100-year-old painting from an artist that never made it large, that had essentially been hidden in an attic for approximately twice my age, and was just uncovered about 3 years ago. But I have it.
Fantastic.
Yes, I love it to death. I don't know much about the gentleman who painted it. His name was Cyrus G. Milne, and I have not found anything about his life other than 3 very old one-off art shows in
So
New
does
York.
the painting have a title? Is it a specific location? Like, do you know?
I
It's
I don't know.
okay.
All we have is a small signature on the bottom right of that painting. I even had it removed from the prior frame from the early 19th, and there was just no info on it. There's no name, there's nothing, just the artist. Pretty
Fantastic.
interesting. Large mystery.
That is it. And for you to have gone down that rabbit hole to try and find who the artist was and know at least a little bit about the artist, right?
One
Like
would say
that's
I got a bit curious.
yeah, that's great. Absolutely. Leaning into your curiosity there. Love it. No, that's great. It looks like Italy to me, but it certainly could be somewhere coastal in South America or Central America. Who knows, right? Like,
Anybody's guess.
yeah,
Anybody's guess.
that's great. I love it. Like, art has every piece of art that we hang has a story, right? Like there's some kind of story behind it. And you don't know the story about where it was painted or why it was painted, but it has this cool rich story to you as found in your grandmother's attic from the previous owner of the home and just had sat there collecting dust over decades.
Exactly. Yeah, and
Fantastic.
of course, like some like print from some old frame shop that hasn't existed in probably half a century. So we clipped the little prints, the little stamp from the prior print shop on the back of the old painting, and put it on the new one when we had it reframed. And so we're keeping the history with us. And the day I struck it rich in this world, you will find me on a sailboat somewhere in this world. So I definitely relate to that painting quite a bit. That's my aspirational goal. That's above my remote workstation.
I appreciate that aspiration for sure. So, talk to us a little bit about Kyle. Like, take us through this journey. You are a tri-states boy, right? Like you are from New York area, right? Like that was where you cut your teeth in publishing, as far as like selling ad space in runner's world, and then bicycling, and just playing with these media conglomerates out there. And then now you've completely shifted. Like most New Yorkers that move to Florida wait till they're like 60, right? Like, and snowbird it. You jumped on that game way early. What led to that? Why?
And I beat the COVID rush where the rest of the world decided to move here. So a fact not many people know about me until we talk about your upbringings is I grew up in New Jersey for a long time, but the majority of my life in terms of spurts where I've lived in different areas was actually in North Carolina. And what happened was I got out of school and I immediately put my bullseye in New York City, specifically because I was an obsessed runner and had just discovered road cycling. And I really wanted to get into advertising and media. And I learned that the largest running media company in the world was also owned by the same company that owned the second largest running media company in the world, that was Running Times and Runner's World. Running Times being the second largest. And then they also own the largest cycling media company in the world. So for somebody who wanted to follow his life ambitions, and chase what he loved and turn that into work, that was my clear bullseye. So I moved from North Carolina to New York literally to chase this one company, and that was it. It wasn't until I was down to essentially one more month's worth of rent in my checking account that I finally received an offer from Xerox to sell printers at a really respectable salary because I was getting desperate. I had a contact at Runner's World, the assistant publisher at the time, Molly O'Keefe, a wonderful woman,
Love
and
Molly.
touch but I just there wasn't any openings. And finally, I asked for an informational follow up just to catch up, and I gave them this job offer from Xerox, and I put it on Molly's desk, and I told her I appreciate her time, and I said, listen, like, I'm going to be the most miserable person in this entire city if I have to accept this job offer in 48 hours from now. I've only had it for a day. I don't know what I have to do to get a chance here on your team on any of these three brands. Though, it would be my dream to work here, and this is literally the reason I moved to the city, was to work for you, for your three brands only. And I don't know what it will take, but I'll do it. Just give me an opportunity here. I have 48 hours, and then I become a printer salesman and wonder why, and what I'm doing with my life. So about 12 hours before I had to accept that offer, they gave me an opportunity to enter as just a sales assistant for a hybrid role across all three brands. And they offered me less than 50% of what Xerox has offered me, and I accepted it immediately. And that was my entrance into Runner's World, right? It was media sales, it was marketing, and I was an ad sales assistant. Though, unfortunately, what I noticed when I was in the industry was, and it's very unfortunate, you talk about the growth of digital and the social media and all these other channels, and, a door closes, a window opens. Unfortunately, the door I saw closing was the entire traditional media industry while I was in it. It was my job eventually to sell print advertising in Bicycle Magazine and Bicycle.com and across Rodale, the ownership company, those assets at the time. And what I was witnessing were advertiser after advertiser removing slight to significant portions of their advertising budget. And it wasn't until one of those advertisers agencies came to me with a job offer for a marketing role at their agency and said, hey, listen, give us 10 minutes of your time to talk about this open role. One of your prior clients has recommended you for this role. If you meet with us, we'll let you know why they canceled their entire advertising budget with you last year. So of course I was furious. I took the meeting to try to win back my client, and a 10-minute meeting turned into an hour, and I realized the entire media industry had evolved beyond what anybody in that media industry, in the traditional side, magazines and websites, was aware of. So I saw the house burning down around me, and I realized in that moment I had to get out. So that's, as much as I love traditional media and I love the trustworthiness and the fact checking and the proper aspect of what you're reading, and it's non-biased in so many more ways than your average social media let's say influencer these days. I realized I had to leave if I wanted to be on the cutting edge, and that was always my aspirations: cutting edge of media, cutting edge of marketing. So yeah, I went to the agency side for 2 years. When I was in the agency, I realized that I felt in companies could do marketing more affordably in house in so many more regards, in so many regards. And there's exceptions to that. Some companies just don't have the chops, or they don't have the talent locally to pull off what they need, or they need a short-term crutch, or they prefer a more extensively professional approach and whatever they hire an agency for. There's always exceptions. Though when I looked at what our agency I was working for, what we were charging for our services versus what a company could realistically send people to the same marketing shows, the same industry seminars, the same keynotes to learn, and then essentially hire in-house to do, I sort of became the anti-agency while I was still at an agency. And that's when I realized I had to leave the agency world. So my next aspiration was, let's go in house and like show companies that they can do this. You can hire a marketing team, you can grow your in-house team, you can groom talent and send them to all the same locations where these agencies are sending their talent. You can have the contact at Google, at Meta, who shows you the new betas and allows you to test that out. And around the same time, I left that agency. I consulted for about 10 months for companies who wanted a short-term consultant, and that's when I moved to Miami, where now I'm in hospitality, because hotels are really fun to market, and it keeps life really interesting. But yeah, it's been a really shift. Like, I went from magazine and website ad sales to an agency where I had to buy and strategize that, to hospitality in-house, where now I'm trying to trim agency outsource expenditures, grow in-house marketing teams, and educate them and inspire them to want to grow as we grow these teams. It's been a total 360 shift, or
Yeah.
180 shift, because I'm kind of the opposite direction all over. But yeah, it's been a while.
So, yeah, absolutely. New York's not a cheap place to live. So when you have a job offer in hand and you're taking half that pay just to chase a passion, what, like, aside from the passion, like, what helped make that decision
To work at Runner's World and not sell
versus
printers.
take the Xerox job?
So my grandfather, actually, my grandfather had this house. Was a very emotionally connected, empathic, and I would just say true person. You only saw one side of him. Everybody saw the direct version of who he was, and he was very admirable. He was a perfect role model of a stereotypical grandfather for me. But in the working world, what I didn't realize until after his death, he didn't want any of his grandchildren to know of his professional world. He just wanted us to know him as grandpa, right, or pop to me.
Yeah.
But to the rest of the family, who his children, who saw him get his chops as he was working up in his life, he started out at this radio station in New York called WOR, and he essentially was a copywriter. At WOR, and essentially what had happened was a few of the clients loved the commercials he'd worked on, and they ended up hiring him to do one-offs. And then he was also very, very religious gentleman. He was Catholic, Roman Catholic. And through one channel or another, ended up getting introduced to a cardinal, a Catholic cardinal, who wanted help writing speeches that this gentleman had to give,
Okay. Yeah.
who he formed an amazing relationship with. One cardinal turned into two, two cardinals turned into four. That eventually ended up growing into 7 separate Catholic cardinals who had him writing speeches for them, and eventually ended up writing speeches for 2 popes as well as 3 United States presidents who were fairly
Wow.
religiously tied, all through just networking and his
Yeah.
passions about speech writing. He was incredible at communications, but all he did, hang a picture on a wall if his life depended on it. But he could write a speech or move you emotionally about the process of choosing the perfect location to hang an image or to hang a picture, and why it had to be in a certain spot, and the bond it would form with your home if you enhanced it with that layout or that backdrop. He was that guy.
So he could tell you where to put it. He just couldn't drive that nail.
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. So I remember about a year before he passed away, I was almost out of school, and I wanted to go into investments or insurance sales, because I heard that both of these areas made a lot of money, and all I cared about was like, well, how am I just going to get a lot of money? And I talked to my grandfather about it. It was probably the second to final conversation I'd ever had with him. And I said, he wanted to know the direction I wanted to go in. And I said, I think I want to do stock market or life insurance, so you can make a lot of money selling that. And I think I would do really well there. And he kind of looked at me, and he lost the fun grandfather face for probably the first time I had seen ever, if not in a very long time. And he kind of said, like, I know you very well, and I know that's not you very well. And he said, I also know you're bright enough to know what your passions are. Like, what are your passions? Of course, I went on about my actual passions, and he kind of said, like, listen, like, the one bit of advice I hope you'll remember from me personally is you have to find a way to work your passion day in and day out. Because if you're not doing for work what you enjoy doing on the side, you're going to be miserable. But if you can do what you love every day of your life, you'll never work a day in your life. And, of course, it took months for that to sink into my 21-year-old head. But after, I would say, about 6 months, I had this grand realization that that wasn't me, and I should try to do what I love. And that's what made me end up going deep into my own passions, setting my sights on Runner's World and bicycling, and deciding that was going to be the only company I would work at starting out. And I've just followed that ever since. Even into hotels now. You moved down to South Florida as we did. My wife's Argentinian. Miami is the perfect location for any South American to launch their career or a new life in the United States. I am the minority in this city, and it's very humbling and amazing
Yeah.
all at the same time. It's like we're like 72% Latin American in Miami. It's wild and really cool.
Yeah. It's
But
awesome.
you come down here and there's like 3 or 4 cycling and running companies that have headquarters down here. It's not a huge market, but everywhere you look are these incredibly beautiful hotels and resorts. And if you just out of pure curiosity looking at their websites, their marketing executions, you can pick holes in it like Swiss cheese, because the hospitality industry, um, it evolves so slowly marketing wise that it's frankly it's really easy for any driven curiosity obsessed and just cutting edge marketer, people that continually push themselves forward. It's easy to be a rock star in this industry if you just never settle for what worked a month ago or a year ago. What I have found is that a lot of what the industry standards are just very dated. So it's been my personal passion to find hotel after hotel, or in the case of my own path, resort after resort, and join it and really just overhaul, advance the property, get it right up to the point where the cutting edge is at, overhaul the entirety of their campaigns, budgets, etc., and then build up teams and teach them along the way as much as I can, and inspire them. Marketing shouldn't
Yeah.
just be a job; it should be a passion. Everybody has. We're fortunate enough as marketers to be exposed to this industry where there's so many sub segment centers within marketing, whether it be public relations or just pure communications or advertising or social media. There's so many focuses: SEO, website development, and working for a hospitality company. You have to wear all hats, and it gives each resort's marketing team the ability to really divvy up workloads based on what each person wants to do, and it keeps it so entertaining. You are literally never bored. I can't think of a day in 7 years that I've been doing this where I sat in any office and said, like, wow, I don't know what I'm going to do today. And it
No.
keeps it fun.
No, that's fantastic. I think you dodged a bullet, right, by not taking the Xerox job for sure. I'll tell you, there are two jobs that I've had in my past that I completely regret, and they were terrible jobs. One, I sold vacuum cleaners. That lasted for like 2 weeks. That was a mistake while I was in college. And then shortly after that, I took a job working for selling copiers. And that probably lasted about 6 months, but it was also horrible. And it's a black hole. It's a dead end. Like you don't go anywhere. Like okay, yeah, maybe you can become a branch manager or whatever, right? But like
Regional
no,
something.
it's horrible. You are
Yeah.
literally trying to sell people something that they, especially in today's day and age, they really don't need. Like yeah, okay, maybe lawyers and stuff are still using them pretty aggressively, right? But it's just no, it's horrible. So you dodged a major bullet there. But I totally understand what you're saying about the hospitality industry, right? Like there is so much low-hanging fruit in that world. As you know, and as some of my listeners know, I've recently made a pivot. I've decided to open a travel agency. So
Mm.
I've been rolling now for a few weeks. Yes, still young and new in it, right? But like understand, having traveled a lot, right, and booked a lot of travel, there's not a lot of there's not a lot of nuance between the way that I approach this place versus that place as someone booking something, right? Like, and I think a lot of hotels have just kind of gotten comfortable with settling with third party sites or loyalty programs. And that's just been enough, right? Like it's like, okay, well,
Absolutely.
we have our loyalty program and we're going to incentivize you to become diamond or platinum or titanium or whatever gemstone they're using these days, right? And so we're going to put that out there, and then you're going to stay with us because you're going to earn more points, or you're going to get free breakfast, or you're going to do that, like whatever that might be, right? Like, but that's not always enough, right? Like it's challenging in today's world to set yourself apart, right? Like, and I've stayed on some beautiful properties. We had the privilege to come out and hang out with you last summer and enjoy that beautiful property, right? Like, frankly, I wish we would have had more time to be able to play 18 holes and
Next
enjoy
time.
the
Next
full
time.
experience, right? But I expect to be back at some point, right? But it's a beautiful spot. I've stayed on at the Renaissance down in Aruba, like beautiful location, right? Costa Rica, like some of these great resorts, right? But like the only one that's ever followed up with me after staying there has been the JW Turnberry. Like that's the only one I get any email or any constant communication from, right? Like,
It's interesting you say that. There's a reason for that, and it's one of the challenges that this industry has, and it's not just Marriott that has it. It's honestly it's Hilton too. What most people don't understand about the hotel industry until you're in it is almost the entire hotel industry is a licensing model. So people think
right.
initially when I go to the Hilton downtown Chicago, then I'm at Hilton's Chicago location, or now I'm going to Hilton Savannah, Georgia, and Hilton owns that too. And what the majority of the world doesn't know is that no, Hilton doesn't own 99% of the entirety of their hotels internationally. Neither does Marriott. When you stay at the Hilton downtown Chicago, you're staying at John Smith's
It's a franchise. Yeah,
fifth
it's some
hotel in
other
his
corporation. It's
multi-billion dollar
yeah.
real estate asset company, and 99% of all hotels out there, they're not owned by the.
Kyle, can you hear me? I think I lost your audio.
Sorry, yeah, did I get disconnected
Okay,
there?
yeah, we lost your audio for a second there.
Oh, my apologies. No, I was just saying it's 99% of the hotels in the world, they're owned by just real estate asset companies that own between one and hundreds of different hotel locations, and then every time they buy one, they decide, okay, well, we have this new property. Right now, it's a Westin, but is it better off as a Holiday Inn Express, or is it better off as an Embassy Suites, or is it really experiential as a property? And in Marriott's portfolio, that would become like an autograph collection, which
Right.
which essentially means you're sort of an independent hotel. You gain some autonomy. Hilton, that's the curio collection. You're in the curio collection because you're unique enough to be independent, and you're given some more privileges. Though the downside to being in hospitality under a few of the brands is the largest brands out there. They also have these large legal targets on their backs, because if your data is used incorrectly at a Marriott hotel, well, guess who has a legal target on their back for not being ADA compliant, or not being GDPR compliant in the case of
It's not the
data?
franchise owner. It's the corporation. It's
It's the
Marriott.
corporations.
It's the one with the big dollars.
Yeah, of course. So what happens is, when you look at the 7,000 Marriotts internationally, or the 5,000 Hiltons internationally, you have these large sweeping policies that these hotel chains have. So Hilton and Marriott both, you're not permitted to pick your own booking engine. When you own a Hilton or a Marriott, you have to go through each respective company's individually owned booking engine. So what happens is, as a marketer, you cannot place tracking implementation on that booking engine. So there goes your tracking for your ad campaigns, unless you use
Makes
their independent.
attribution really complicated and
Really
nearly
complicated, right?
impossible. Yeah.
So both companies allow you to put a tracking link on for their own proprietary tracking. Both companies use 30-day last touch attribution, which essentially eliminates your conversion tracking. Whenever, let's say, somebody clicks on a pay-per-click ad or at a Google ad, and then a week later they click on a paid social ad, and then they click on an email, right? And then they finally book. What's going to happen is both those ad campaigns are going to see $0 attributed towards them, even though you've had ad clicks. But that email is going to see 100% attribution as having sold that. So it creates this inaccurate funnel for hotelier marketers, where you have to find creative ways around that if possible. And likewise, since you're using these corporate booking engines, what happens is, you're not permitted to collect data from your end guests unless they're for some of your outlets. So like our resort cannot collect guest information, first name, last name, city, state. We can't just email them
Right.
unless that email goes specifically through Marriott for approval and we're paying X amount per email sent. So, we're allowed to do these separate efforts where, for the spa, we can collect a database. For the water park we can collect a database. For our steakhouse, we can collect a database. And we're marketing those outlets very much real time like you would expect in 2025. But for the resort hotel itself, it creates a large dilemma where how do you speak to your guests at the proper moments when there are these restrictions in place, these limitations due to legalities from data compliance scares. And as a marketer, that sort of creates antiquities when you're trying to execute like it's the current year. And that I would say is the only hurdle and headache that this industry faces over just generalized marketing team size and budgets. But, there's opportunities in every industry, and hotels, they have their own opportunities for diversification and growth. And that certainly is one of them.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. This is going to be more of a selfish question based on my career pivot.
Yep.
How, like, with all of these other challenges, I think a lot of people think, and like I tend to talk to people, they're like, I thought travel agents were dead. I thought that was like a job back in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? Like, and they're definitely not dead, right? Like they are,
There are lots of
like,
them.
and so how important does the travel agent become in your career, in your job?
So I think it depends on the specific travel agent. You have good travel agents, you have not
Sure.
not so wonderful travel agents.
No,
Though
there
most people,
it's like a realtor, right?
yeah,
Or a loan officer. It's fairly simple to get into relatively, right? But you're going to have terrible realtors that don't really know what they're
of course.
doing, and you're going to have really good ones, right? So there are, yes, for
I
sure.
had a misconception before I came into this industry that if I'm paying a travel agent, that must mean I'm paying more for my vacation. And what I've realized now that I'm in this industry is that travel agents can get you the same price as you would normally get for your hotel for your vacation, if not sometimes less expensive pricing than you could get yourself through any channel, whether you go direct or otherwise, because of the way that it works. Are granted wholesale rates versus the general public, you're granted only the public facing rates. So what that means is that on some days of the week and some months of the year, the travel agent's wholesale rates are less than you're going to be able to find anywhere on the internet for those locations. And because of that, you're able to get a vacation for less than you could get it for if you just booked on that website. And then when the travel agent books any vacation, they're getting a commission from wherever they book, et cetera. So it helps them obviously be profitable and pay for their ongoing expenses. Though I never knew that until I got in this industry. I always just assumed they were booking for you, and then there's a surcharge they were tacking on to the end
Yeah.
for their fees, their services. But no, when you hire a travel agent, you're basically getting all of their services free of charge because it's the destinations that they book with that are essentially paying them, as simplistically as I can put it.
Yeah, well, and for you on your end of it, right, as the marketer of the property, right, they're valuable to you because you don't have to necessarily put out ad spend or other things to try to acquire that customer, right? So you're acquiring them through the travel agent that is familiar with your property, familiar with the water park, the restaurants there, right? The golf, etc. And so, yeah, their commission is paid by the hotel.
Exactly.
And then, so yeah, but also the other thing is too, as a travel agent, right? Like I may book the same rate with say the JW Turnberry as you're gonna go get on Marriott.com or wherever, right? But if you're not platinum or titanium with Marriott, right? I as a travel agent, most likely with your property, I should have looked it up before, but I think it's part of the Virtuoso network, and
It is.
I can
Yeah,
get
we're
you
in virtual.
perks to where you're going to get free breakfast on your stay at the JW. I'm
Yep.
going to get you a likely upgrade. I'm going to get you late checkout, right? Like those other perks that most
That you
status
can't get just
members,
by calling directly.
right?
Yeah.
You can only get if you're platinum or titanium or whatever, right? Like, and so just as a casual traveler, you're going to be able to partake in those same perks by booking through a travel agent in a lot of cases.
And by the way, what I've realized at the three resorts I've been at is that those travel agent specific packages, we put some packages on, Expedia or Book.com or what have you as well. But 9 times out of 10, the packages we'll give to travel agents have better value packed in for the same price than what we give to even the larger channels. Because we
Yeah.
want to help them out, and we like to support small business, and we realize there's a lot of travel agents, and we have a lot of other hotels to compete with, and we want to give the very best offer to the people we know are working hardest for our business. I mean, you'd be surprised how many travel agent specific offers that our resort alone has out there with, the Virtuosos or, Amex Fine Hotels and Resorts is a separate program. Each one has a different offer, but I find that the travel agents tend to have some of the best offers that we'll release because that's our way to sort of support that subsection of the industry that we rely on for room nights and for vacationers.
Yeah. Plus, you're also getting the perks of getting your Marriott
Of
points or
course,
whatever by booking through a travel agent because we're booking direct. We're not booking
of course.
in most cases, like to get you those perks, to use those networks, right? Like if we have partnerships with those hotels, we're going to get you booked direct, not through a third party like a booking.com or Expedia or whatever, right?
Yep.
Um, which you
Which means you
miss
have more
out.
freedoms too. You have more
Yep.
freedoms. If your stay doesn't go right, you need a refund, you need to cancel. A lot of these third party platforms, you just can't after a certain
Right.
amount of time. But through a travel agent, you have a lot more freedom and capability because you have that direct booking to be able to make a change if you need to last minute to get a refund if you had a bad experience. And those travel agents have a lot more skin in the game to fight on your behalf to get a refund, to make good, an upgrade, an amenity added because of any kind of an experience that maybe wasn't perfect, because that travel agent is going to work a lot harder for you than the behemoth Expedia, right? That just cares about getting 10,000 more bookings by
Yeah.
tomorrow globally, and they're not going to pick up the phone and call the hotel and say, listen, my client's there right now and they said they haven't checked in and it's now 5 p.m. What's happening and what can we do about this? A travel agent will many
Yeah,
a
for
time.
sure. Well, because Expedia, like to your point, right? They've got 10,000 other bookings. They're just it's a churn and burn model, right? Like it's an online platform. But me as a travel agent, right? Like I hope you book your next trip with me, and so I want to make sure
Of
that you're
course.
happy. And not only that, right? Like I want you to go have a great experience on your trip, right? Well, Kyle, as you're in the hospitality game, do you feel like you're traveling more that you're working for a hotel to go see what other hotels are doing, what kind of experience that, or are you traveling less because you're just too busy focused on your own property?
Both? Yes to both questions. Uh, I am frequently buried in my workload because I purposefully bury myself in my workload. I am so obsessed with making everything as cutting edge as it can be, like trigger email campaigns and advanced targeting and rolling out new first evers for whatever hotel or resort or ownership company I'm at, that I won't give myself usually 5 minutes to breathe in a day. If I'm done with one project, I'm right on to the next one. And I tend to work a lot of hours because of that as well. But that's due to my own doing. That's my own sort of purity obsessed vision and goals that I draw for myself. That said, when I do travel, I feel like I used to be the anti-hoteler. I was the Airbnb or die kind of traveler. And but you work in Marriott, you work in Hilton, you get incredibly good discounts when you travel at virtually any Marriott or Hilton internationally.
Sure,
And that's caused me to stay at a lot of hotels rather than Airbnbs. I've kind of flip flopped now that I'm in the industry. And, the one thing I do love paying attention to when I travel is I'm always looking at the guest experience everywhere I'm at because I'm obsessed with upgrading our own wherever I'm at. So, like,
yeah,
everything from like you valet park your car, right? And the more traditional hotels, they give you valet stub and that's it. And now you have to bring that stub back down to valet parking at the end, or when you want your car, you have to wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or whatever, for your car if there's a line, and that's it. But the more creative resorts, they've updated their valet software, so now they give you the stub. There's a QR code for it. You can track where your vehicle's at online, And then when you want to get your car, call in. Well, you don't call in, you reserve, or you put in the time that you're planning at being at that front entrance of whatever hotel you're at before you even go downstairs. You could scan that QR code at 1:30 in the afternoon and say, I want my car in the front at 4:15 p.m. That's when I'll be downstairs. And
Has
that's
Marriott
advanced
built
valet.
that into their app yet?
No, no, not
Okay.
at the moment. That
That
that's
would be
that's
an
a large
awesome app
opportunity for growth.
feature. Yeah, that would be
Yeah,
an
it
awesome
would be
app
a
feature.
phenomenal app feature. But there's
Yeah.
so many. There's so many because when you look at how many marketing or sales as a service or marketing companies out there nowadays, there's so many. And AI has just opened up so much more potential to advance
Sure.
marketing tech in general. So the simplest tasks that used to be, drop off your car, pick it up. Now there's this process where if you're stretched on time or you just want a more seamless process, you're willing to scan that QR code and take a few minutes. You can be so seamless from check-in to checkout and make your experience more about play and stay and less about waiting. And it can be so personalized if you'll allow yourself to get engulfed with the different systems of some of the more advanced locations out there.
Yeah.
So when I stay at places, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at like, great, what collateral's in the room? Like, how can I interact with this? What do they have on the in-room channels, right? Do they have QR codes on all the screens? Can I scan one more if I care? Are they tracking those? Are there, do they have was it like UTM trackers on their QRs? Like I'm looking for all the little holes, but I'm
Yeah.
also looking for what they do right that we're maybe not doing, so that I can bring back some learnings and advance our own approach. And there's
So
just so many ways to look at it.
absolutely. So you talk about technology, and I think like leveraging technology, leveraging artificial intelligence, leveraging QR codes, right? Like data tracking, that type of stuff, super important in any business, right? Like,
Of
and
course.
especially in the hospitality business. But talk to me a little bit about the personal touch. How important is that in your role in focusing on how your staff interacts with the customer when they show up, when they have an issue, when they come down, when they just a question, whatever.
I think it's critical, and there are so many ways that hotels can make it critical or critically accurate, I would say, and just nail it correctly on the first stay if they invest in the right technologies and they invest in the right staffing and they invest in the right training. When you look at the technology that's just wrapped into so many of these, these guest systems, right? Your PMS system, you have these guest folios where I could look at a guest that has stayed at our hotel and has opted into info sharing, or they're a Marriott Bonvoy member, and I can tell immediately like how many times they've stayed with us, where else have they stayed, how much money have they spent with us, what do they order on any and all checks that they charge back to the room, what's the lifetime value of this guest, and then when you sync that guest system, that guest tracking system, that PMS system, when you sync that with a powerful service like an SMS texting service, or even with like an app, right? If you're syncing your app with your PMS system, that brings in so much more of an advanced capability to send out specific messaging to that guest with behaviorally triggered text campaigns, behaviorally triggered app notifications based on what you know that they love. So we're working on one now, finally, as a property, the one I'm at, where we're going to have, I would say, upwards of 40 to 50 separate triggered text messages that will go out to different Marriott Bonvoy guests based entirely on what their prior stay-related preferences were when they were with us. So if we know that they dined at our steakhouse, they're going to get a text shortly after check-in asking if they need help booking a reservation. There'll be a link to redirect to our open table page. There's going to be a number they can call. It'll give them the ability to text a date and time. We'll book it for them. If we know that they love wine because they send it up to their room, they'll have a tag on their folio, and then we can send them the wine list within that first text on check-in. You can remedy things so quickly too when obstacles come up. Having that same dialogue will allow any guest to text that number on arrival and say, I got to my room, I need 7 extra towels. And because that service is synced with our PMS system, right, your guest management system, we can take that request, push it through our system, through a separate system that tells housekeeping to drop off 7 towels, and we have the record of that on their folio. Now we know that their guest that likes to use a lot of towels. So like maybe you want to put that in their room next time. So when you talk about personalization of service, I think part of it comes in terms of data collection,
Sure.
but the other part of that this is a critical part. You have all this data. Now you have to engineer the end user approach because you know you have the data, and that involves marrying different systems together and really just ironing out what 85 different user demographics would look like, and how you want to custom approach each one. And that's the more time intense capability that hotels have. It's just a matter of, have they had the time to implement it yet? And hopefully someday all of them do. It's going to make the experience a lot better for the end user.
So I love that, and I love kind of monitoring that data, right? Like how can we cater to this guest experience based off of previous visits, etc. Let me share one story with you that like as I mentioned, right? Like I've stayed in some pretty nice properties, both while working with Ultra and then also traveling with my family and stuff. And I've been lucky to be, and I don't think I've paid full price to travel with my family in very many hotel rooms, at least in where I've
That
been
means you have
upgraded or
friends in high
whatever,
places.
or I just have been able to swing points or what, right? Like whatever, and other stuff, right? Like, and so I just understanding, right? Like, but okay, so last fall, my wife and I went down to Costa Rica to celebrate our anniversary, and we stayed in Jaco at the Los Sueños Resort down there, which is a Marriott property. And right when we got there, the valet, phenomenal. He was awesome. He had worked there since it had opened.
Oh wow.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, I met good old Bill Marriott when he came down," and he was telling us like,
Yeah.
and we just had like we had some great conversations with him as he helped us into our room and whatever, right? And we were there for I think 3 nights is how long we were there. It was slower. Like this was off season. It was September, right? So it wasn't super busy down there. But I will tell you one thing that really stood out to me and was super impactful. And we had used some of our upgrade credits that we had through our status, right? And so we had a beautiful room. We had a great stay. But I think it was our second day. I had went up to the front desk to ask for something, and she called me by name. And I was floored. I was super impressed. And I was floored. Like she was the same lady that checked us in, but that was a day earlier. It might even been our third day, right? Like, but it was she like enough time had passed where she had talked to enough other people. She knew my name when I came up, right? And that has stood out to me. I don't think I can ever think of another time in a hotel when that's happened to me. And I like, and I'm not a fancy, like, I'm not, like, this is my first time at this resort, right? Like, I get it if I'm going somewhere on for business and I stay there regularly and it's like, okay, like, we know this guy, right? We've seen him a lot. That was
Yeah, yeah.
not the case, right? Like, this was my first visit to this place. Like, she knew
That's
my
wild.
name. She called me by name. It was fantastic. And like thinking about, so there's a book I just read recently by Will Guidara. He was the general manager of 11 Madison Park in New York, called Unreasonable Hospitality. Have you read it yet?
No, I have not.
Okay,
No.
you need to read that book. And
Okay.
everybody on your team should read that book.
Okay.
But it is all about like doing small things that completely set him apart, right? He established, like they etched out a job for somebody. They were called the Dreamweaver. And they ended up actually having 3 people that was their full-time job eventually, to be Dreamweavers. And
That's
this
cool.
kind of started, he was, as general manager, he would often bust tables. He's like, I wanted to be out among the people. I wanted to hear the
Yeah.
conversations. I wanted to just feel what people were feeling in the restaurant, right? And one day he overheard this group of 4 individuals just like, oh, we've had so many great culinary experiences. It's our last night in New York. This has been fantastic. But the one thing that we didn't get to do was we didn't get to have a New York street hot dog. Like we didn't get the dirty water hot dog
Yeah. Yeah.
experience. And so immediately he goes out of the restaurant, goes around the corner. He's like, I'm
Flies
new to
on.
hot dog guy. Like he's always there. I bought one hot dog from him. And he's
Yeah.
like, I took it back to the chef and I said, hey, I need you to cut this up into 4 pieces. And the
Uh,
chef's like, no way. Like, I am not doing, like, we are not serving a customer a hot dog. Are you
hot dog.
crazy? And he's like, we had this trust me rule, right? Like, we didn't abuse it, but I told him, I said, trust me. And so he's like, fine, whatever. So he decorates it up, puts it on 4 different plates, right? And so Will brings these 4 plates out to the customers, and they were ecstatic. They were like, this is the greatest thing. Like, we were just talking about this, like, unbelievable, right? And so, like, that then turned into the Dreamweaver job, right? So it was
That's
like
cool.
one guy was going home to his daughter and forgot a stuffed animal, so they ended up making one out of napkins or something and giving it to him. A couple was there staying at a hotel and celebrating their wedding anniversary or whatever, and it was a big momentous like 25th year or something, right? So they ended up finding out what hotel they were in and send a bottle of wine and stuff up to their room for when they got back, right? when you're spending when you're spending $1,000 or whatever on one meal, right? You do these certain things, right? But it was none of those were really big, right? Like one was like they were talking about a movie that they hadn't seen in years that something in New York reminded them of. So somebody went out and bought the DVD and gave them the DVD, right? Like just little
That's such a
stuff
nice thing,
like
Ron.
that. And it's like it's and yeah, okay, technology isn't doing that. However, I will share one thing that he shares, right? But it was that personal touch, right? It was listening to that, right? Like, okay, what are we hearing? What are we seeing with these people? How can we interact with them differently, right? And that's what I experienced down in Costa Rica was the the valet, he was interacting with me differently, right? The front desk, they knew my name, right? Like the whole experience with the like they just went out of their way to up the game as far as your stay, right? Like we were just amazed, right? Like it was wonderful. But another story that he shares, and one thing that they incorporated was they got rid of the hostess table up front. And so they were, because he's like, that's a barrier. That's a barrier between our hostess and the guest. And so we got rid of it because we want to welcome you into our home, right? The restaurant is our home. We're
I love
serving
that.
you our meal. So they got rid
Yeah.
of the hostess table. And he's like, the other thing that we did was when we would take a reservation from somebody, we had the gal that was going to be working as the hostess call the night before to confirm all the reservations. And so she knew who she was going to be greeting. But then they would do research on, they would Google the people, right? They would look them up on Facebook, like kind of creepy, stocky a little bit, right? But they knew these people, and so they knew their faces when they came in, so they could greet them by name and be like, hey, welcome to our restaurant. I was the one that confirmed the reservation with you last night. We're so grateful to have you here. How's your stay in New York been? Or how's business or what, right? Like just real personal touch. And like you can't calculate the value of that, right? Like there's no attribution model that we're going to be able to
No.
say, okay, like that personal touch, right? The Los Sueños in Costa Rica, right?
Yeah.
Like calling me by name. Well, now
Yep.
I've got my 50 people listening to this or whatever it is, right? That are like, okay, like that's a really cool experience, right? Like, and I'll go back there next time I go to Costa Rica. I'm staying there again.
You're gonna go
Like,
there. And
absolutely, the
rightfully so.
experience was
Rightfully so.
awesome. And I'm about to book a client at that hotel, like because of the experience that I had there. It's like, okay, like that is a great place to stay.
Got
Absolutely.
I've got two parallel experiences for you. One was at one of my prior properties, and you know we had a social media person who was always looking to do things differently, and unexpected gratitude was sort of an ambition of hers as well. And one of the things we did was we invested in a number of just promotional items for that property. So like that property was beachfront, so and it was a margaritable property too, so it was very Jimmy Buffett based and drinking centric, alcohol based or whatever. So we invested in sunglasses because a lot of people go to the brand new sunglasses. A lot of people go to the beach and they don't want to get sunscreen all over their quality sunglasses. And we had these like credit card bottle openers that were the same size as a credit card, but it opened a vial and you put it in your wallet or whatever, and a few other promotional items that we had that just weren't for sale, but we made these because we thought they were cool and we thought they were items that a lot of people at that resort, if you were staying there and you're a typical demographic that would stay at that margarita bowl, these are items you would totally use probably during that stay immediately.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
just you wouldn't realize some of these items even existed, like in the case of the credit card size bottle openers. So, but what we did was we ordered a bunch, and then it was part of her job. We integrated in her job role where every week she had to pleasantly surprise, it was like between 5 and 10 people. So as she was going through her day-to-day role in social media and checking in and seeing who tagged us and who responded to what, you'd see a lot of people on our social channels that would say like, oh my God, I'm here. This place is amazing. Check out the image of our family doing this, or my son's back for his third day, or we're here to support my husband's 50th birthday or whatever. So she would find the most special occasions, and she would write each one of them like a note, like, hey Tom, like we're so excited to have you with us. Didn't realize it was your third trip. Like thought you guys might want some shades. Sounds like you really like margaritas, but we didn't know if you had a credit card size bottle opener. And she would drop downstairs, 5 to 10 of these surprise letters like once a week, and on different days when she found the best opportunities. And then we would reach out to that guest. We would direct message them and we would say like, hey Tom, thanks so much for your post. By the way, we left something for you at front desk. So like it was totally unexpected on these people's end, but like when they went to front desk, now you're giving them a very personalized handwritten note, a few items you literally can't buy anywhere else that you probably think are really cool if you're a member of a typical demographic of that brand.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that where we tried to really personalize the approach before we really had a lot more data insights at that property to allow us to approach it even more advanced manner. But another thing which I love doing these, by the way, I would say my first two properties I've done more than my current. My current will eventually start doing this as well. A lot of people go to resorts for proposals. They go to very beautiful scenic locations to do proposals, and that was something we loved helping out people with. So people would reach out to us regularly, once every 2 or 3 weeks, and say, "Well, I'm going to propose to my girlfriend there, and we're from Chicago or whatever. We're coming from Orlando," and they give us a little bit of their backstory. But what we would do is, if the opportunity was right and the room was open, we set this thing up where we would orchestrate that we bumped into whoever was going to propose to their significant other. We would bump into them and, oh, hey, how are you? How are you guys enjoying your stay? And that was predetermined, like the time and the place that we're going to bump into them. And they were just going to talk to us about like, oh, we're just here. We're looking around and like, do you guys have any suites here? And our team would offer to tour them through a suite. And what they didn't know is that we had already pre-set up the perfect engagement opportunity for them in our penthouse suite or our presidential suite. So we'd bring them up there. So you're on like the top floor, incredible panoramic vistas of ocean front or just whatever was surrounding that property. We did this at two different properties, and we'd essentially we'd have a Bluetooth speaker system already ready with whatever song they wanted to propose to. And the idea was we'd be like, oh, actually our penthouse suite's open. Why don't we show you that? And essentially we'd walk them around, we'd show them, and their significant other would be like floored because this is a room that's $5,000 to $9,000 a night to rent.
Yeah.
And most people don't get to step a foot in here. And then what we do every single time is when they went out to the balcony, we would sort of back out and give them a moment to just kind of hang out. And then you'd turn on the music. We'd break out champagne only after they proposed. And it was like this perfect,
As long as they
like
said yes.
tear-jerking moment every time. We did it, I don't know, probably 10 to 15 times. And it was absolutely incredible every time. It never got old.
So fun.
And it was just a way we could help out somebody randomly who either we discovered through a social media post that they're going to be doing this, or they would proactively reach out to us. And if the stars aligned, we were always doing that to help people out. But personalization is everything. I mean, you've got a great point.
Love it. So I want to wrap up with a few rapid fire questions. But first, before I do, we might as well give you this platform. Give us the sales pitch behind your property. Why do people want to stay there? What makes it unique? How do you differentiate it from other properties in the South Florida area?
So where I'm at right now, it's JW Marriott Miami Turnberry Resort and Spa. It's a bit wordy, but if you Google JW Turnberry Resort, you'll find it. It's unique in that it's not a beachfront property, and it's in South Florida. And most people that come to South Florida, they want to stay beachfront. But what makes us unique is two different, I think, end user experiential aspects. One is that we have the largest water park that you can visit in all of Southern Florida, directly beside our resort. We own it. It's called Tidal Cove Water Park. It's a 5-acre water park, 7 water slides, lazy river. It has the largest surf and bodyboard simulator in all of North America. It was the first ever, it's called a Flow Rider simulator. You see them on the back of the Royal Caribbean ships. We had the first ever Flow Rider triple in the world at our resort. Flow Rider triple meaning it's a really wide surf and bodyboard simulator. But you have three different motors to power it because it's so wide. We're the first in the world, and we currently have one of only three in the world. And it's like the third largest in the entire world flow rider. And it's right there in our side yard. It's free to ride when you enter the water park, and you enter the water park for free too when you stay as a guest. So for those that might not be attached to beachfront and you're okay with having a gigantic water park, that's amazing. But also, if you're into golf, I love to talk to people about this. So we have two championship golf courses that we own. We're on 300 acres of land, which try to find 300 acres of land in Miami. You're not going to. So we're on 300 acres of land, just a mile and a half from the beach. And for any people that love golf, the PGA and LPGA tours have now been held 8 separate times on our golf courses over the years. So they are very pristine championship courses. And the only way to play golf at our resort is to either stay overnight or be a member of our country club. So they are not open to the public. And so you're getting a very special private access to a championship, historically acquainted set of courses if you stay and you play golf. And even if you don't want to play around, we also have we have 3 different practice ranges, right? We have a driving range, we have a putting range, we have a chipping range. All 3 are completely complimentary to resort guests. You bring clubs or you rent clubs, you can sit on the driving range for 4 hours straight if that's what you want to do with your afternoon, and there's zero charge. So just the amenities baked into your stay, there's so much. I mean, like even with our spa relaxation circuit, there's so much. But yeah, that wasn't an elevator pitch. That was a full ride down plus walk out
Hey,
the front door.
I
I
didn't
love
need the elevator pitch. I opened it up for the pitch. No, and you guys are right across the street from the Avalon Mall, like, and as you mentioned, it's only a mile and a half to the beach, right? Like that's an easy Uber ride or whatever. Also, the property has bikes available to borrow that you can kind of ride around the golf course perimeter. A couple of great restaurants on site.
There's a
So
5K fitness circle, a fitness path that surrounds our entire property. 3.1 miles to circumnavigate our resort's land that we're on.
yep, that's how
So,
Kyle trains for his 50 milers, is he runs that 10 times.
yeah, do it backwards after.
So awesome. Well, let me run through a few rapid fire questions, more than a couple, but a few. So Kyle, how do you respond to failure?
I don't look at anything as a failure. I look at everything as a learning opportunity. So if I didn't get my desired outcome, I double back. I look at what I learned from that, and I regroup and I reapproach. To me, there's not a failure. You're either winning or you're learning. I forget who said that quote, and I'm a huge believer in that.
What is one of your greatest accomplishments?
My kid. Like you think you've conquered the world, and then you have a kid, and then you learn what like pregnancy is like. You learn what like going to CVS at 3 a.m. in the morning, like for 4 weeks straight is like, and then you have this little human being, and you realize what being truly and wholly selfless is like from the moment they're born, and it's a masterclass in just giving everything to something else. You think you've done it, and then you have a child. That would be that would be my answer.
Well, I'm glad you said your kid, but I was kind of selfishly hoping you'd say conquering um, Grandeur Peak in Utah with me, but
Yeah, getting caught on the top of a mountain when the sun was gone and Jeremy was the only one with a cell phone light, and we had to hack through bushes on the way down the backside.
that was a lot of fun. When you came out for Outdoor Retailer, I decided to take you on a little bit of a run up a mountain.
Yeah,
And the fun thing about that is we tried to take a ridge line that I'd never taken before. And so we kind of got lost. We just knew go up,
yeah.
but it was a
And I
little
trusted. I put every ounce of trust in you. I was like, God, Jeremy's probably been up here 50 times. He does this every day. I was like, he's got
it
it
was a
covered.
little bushwhacky. And then when we turned around, it was definitely dark, and we had to
Yeah.
run down with a cell phone light. So that was
By the way, that to
little
date
sketch.
is the most legitimate, authentic trail run I think I've ever done in my entire life. And I say trail loosely, but the most authentic, like wilderness run, we'll put it that way, that I think I've ever done. That was a good time.
Absolutely awesome. What inspires you?
Uh, for me is, I would say personally and professionally. Professionally, what inspires me is doing things that have never been done before. Whether that's setting a record like most website traffic, most e-commerce revenue, or launching something that hasn't been conceptualized or executed yet. I'm always trying to push forward, and I'm always trying to get there before every one of my competitors gets there. I want to be on that cutting edge. I want to ride it, and I want to beat the market to it. That's what drives me professionally. Firsts and records. Personally, what drives me is just I think discovering my passions and figuring out how to integrate my family into that, and figuring out how to just be the best role model. And I think some of that carries over professionally, right? You're a good role model at home. You want to be a good role model to your team at work, and that has some carryover.
Awesome. What book are you reading right now?
Oof. What did I just open? The Next Discussion. What's the guy's name? Grant, not Grant. Oh man, I'm gonna have to get back to you about the author. It's incredible. It's an incredible book. It's all about approaching difficult conversations, or the next conversation. Sorry. It's all about approaching difficult
Jefferson
discussions.
Fisher.
That's the
Okay.
author. So he's a trial attorney, a trial lawyer that essentially learned really early on that he had a knack for connecting with people more so than litigating cases. And he started this social channel. I discovered him randomly on Instagram because I came across this video of like how to navigate conversations with people that are arrogant, or what to say to somebody that's trying to belittle you. And his approach to communication marries the desire to want to understand where everybody's coming from, and being as respectful as humanly possible in your response, and handling yourself in a way that you can be proud of. It's not about winning an argument. It's about understanding where somebody's coming from and setting standards that respect yours and their ground. And just every bit of advice I've read from him in this book. So I'm like 95 pages in. I started it 2 days ago. I can't put it down. It's phenomenal advice, and it's all about not winning the argument, but having a common ground understanding, and salvaging relationships. And I think so many
So
people don't think that way.
important today. Yeah. So always important, right? But so important today because it feels like there's so much just contentious noise out there. And yeah, and we've got to push through that and find common
To
ground
connect
for
with
sure.
people, right?
Yeah.
And we have to connect. We can't just win always. You have to connect with people, and I
Yeah,
think there's so much
absolutely.
value in that.
Well, and it's like life is not a zero sum game, right? Like it's not it's not a win-lose scenario and it shouldn't be, right? We've got to stop treating it that way. So, awesome. What book have you read in the past 12 to 18 months that you would highly recommend to others?
I frequently find myself rereading. There's a guy, Gary Vaynerchuk. He owns the largest social media agency in the world, right? VaynerMedia.
Yeah.
He's written a few books, and I find myself frequently rereading those books because the way that he thinks, I feel like, is timeless in terms of trying to get ahead of the clutter in marketing. But also, there's another book called "Whatever You Think, Think the Opposite," and it's a short read, and it's all about just getting outside of the standard thought process and trying to see things from a perspective that you're not used to. And I think the
Yeah.
more you do that, it helps your creativity aspect, and it helps shed a lens on maybe how other people would view a situation, and allows you to view things more universally. And I love that
Yeah.
book. It's a very short read, but a great one.
So good. Two books in that vein that I would highly recommend are bestsellers, but Adam Grant's Think Again. Adam Grant's notorious for rethinking, right? Like, and looking at things. And then Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow is another good one.
Put those on
But
your list.
yeah, so yeah, awesome. So I'd be remiss without asking this question because it is my favorite question, my favorite topic. Where's your favorite place you've traveled in the past and why?
That's a really good question.
The hospitality guy's on the hot seat here.
Yeah, I know, right? You know, there's a tiny Spanish town. No, is it Spanish? It's French. It's a tiny French town. It's called Montpellier. It's spelled Montpellier, and it's this tiny, tiny little French town, and it's sort of on the south. I think it's on the southwestern coast. Spanish architecture. Nobody speaks a lick of Spanish. Everybody speaks French. Small, small, small town, way off the beaten path. Not touristy whatsoever. It is real life, small town France. And I think so many people, you set your scope on going to Europe, and you choose the largest cities out there, and that is a global experience to have, no doubt about it. I'm all about getting off that beaten path and finding the little tiny real life locations that are so picturesque and that really just spell out what a culture consists of in a country that I
Yeah.
go to. And for me, Montpellier was this town I just randomly ended up in France that we were supposed to be there one night. We ended up being there 4 days because we just, you dig in a little bit and you're like,
Yeah.
well, that was unexpected. So you stay a little bit more and then you're like, well, we could stay another night. And then at the end of it, you just want to go back again and again and again. And that was a town for me that I don't think I'll ever forget.
I love it. No, that's so good. I'm working on planning a trip to Italy for one of my clients, and they've got 3 towns that they've kind of highlighted, and none of them I'd ever heard of. And so I'm like,
Beautiful.
okay, props to you, right? Like, let's go. This is gonna be fun.
Get prepared to fall in love. That's a
Yeah,
beautiful country.
it is fun. Like I haven't done a ton of smaller towns in Europe, but like Dijon, France was smaller, and
Okay.
that was a fun little stay. And then we stayed in Thun, Switzerland, which
Okay.
is kind of
Okay.
the gateway to Zermatt and Interlaken, right? Like those are
Okay.
both the bigger known names in that area, but we stayed in Thun and it was a lot like that, right? Like just this small magical little Swiss
Those are the
community.
best places.
It was great. It was so fun. It was my son's picking. He chose that spot and it was a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. Yeah, those finding those little magical gems become a lot of fun because it's easy to be attracted to the tourist places like Paris and Rome
Of course.
and Venice and those places, right? Like, and those places certainly have their magic, right? Like they're great, but yeah, I need, and I think it's really hard sometimes too when we look at like, is Europe a bucket list? Like, is it a one and done type of scenario? And if it's a one and
No,
done, then
definitely
how do I
not.
get the most bang out of it, right? Hopefully you can figure out ways to make it so it's not a one and done. And it's like, okay, now let's broaden our horizons a little bit and go find these really cool little communities that we can go stay in for
Yeah,
sure. So,
knock out the large cities, right? And you can say you've done it and you've been there, but yeah, you always want to get off that beaten path. That's where
yeah.
you find the places that are truly yours. Find me 5 other people that have been to Thun that weren't on that same trip with you, and I'd be shocked. And that's what makes that cool for you, right? And it sets a really personal experience as well.
Well,
That matters.
now I got to go take the trip. You said Southwest France,
I
Montpellier.
believe, yeah. I mean, God, this was like 12 years ago. I don't know if it was Southwest
Okay.
or Southeast, but it's definitely Southern Coast, and spelled like Montpellier, but they call it Montpellier, and it's just incredibly magical little town off the beaten path.
Is it
Never
close
expected to be there.
over
Didn't
by
want
the
to.
mountain? Is it near the mountain range between France and Spain or?
Oh man, I
That's
have
all right.
no idea.
We'll all go look it up on a map now because
I
we're
don't know
all
if
gonna
I
look
don't know
and
if I
see
was
it.
familiar with Google Maps. It was so long ago.
So
I would
yeah,
have to pull that up. But
we're
yeah, no, I highly recommend it.
we're all gonna go tag that as a must see spot. So this sounds great. I'm in.
Well, let me know when you
So
eventually get there. We'll
yeah,
trade some.
fantastic. Well, Kyle, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us today. Where can people keep up with you or follow you? Kind of stay in touch with what you're doing.
Yeah. So I mean, Instagram probably best, right? Instagram. I have the longest Instagram handle in the world. And it's like some call me Kyle, others call me Simmons or something like that. It's way too long. I'll send it. I'll send you the handle. You can
Okay,
tag me.
we'll put it in the show
But
notes. So
that's the
okay,
best way probably to keep in touch with me, but or to reach out. LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn. It's like the social platform I'm most updated with.
okay,
But yeah, best 2
great.
places.
Well, awesome. Well, if any of us go to South Florida, let's yeah, go stay at the
Give me a
JW
shout.
Turnberry there and yeah, go visit Kyle and hang out and he'll give you the 5-star treatment. You'll get the awesome water park and all the whole 9 yards there. So, thanks again, man. Appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us here on A Bit of Curiosity and have a blessed, wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim. Much appreciated.